feel in this moment is nearly unspeakable. I just had this kind of whirlwind 24 hours that can only be perfect. But it's opened up this conversation we're about to have in ways that I can hardly unpack in 20 minutes, that's for sure. And I do want to say thank you. By the way, I have a beloved online, Jody. Where am I looking? Am I looking at Jody here? And everyone that cared to join. And I also have to start with Sunny. Family. Incredible. And yes to you. And I love you. I see you. Yeah, I feel you. And I cannot help but notice that I've spoken here before. That was when Spencer and I just got here, new to town. We are co-proprietors of the Yucca, and believe me, it is our pleasure, actually Spencer and Jordan and David and I, it's our pleasure to host Dr. Nike at the Yucca next weekend, so we look forward to seeing you there. But let's get straight to it. I think what I want to say is that Anne and I, even in the scheme of this 24-hour whirlwind that left me kind of coming in feeling.
Yes, please, could you speak up a little?
Can I just bring it higher and?
Just adjust it.
Yeah, okay.
How's that?
It's better?
Is it better?
It's better?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Perfect, yeah, I don't want to speak louder. I just want to place it
Yes.
better. Thank you,
Good,
perfect.
good.
Even in the scheme of this kind of whirlwind 24 hours that landed me like right here, right now, woo! And if you had any idea how conversational and casual this is about to be, you would be laughing with me as hard as I'm laughing right now. But then there's that trust for the universe, and the prayer that Anne came in with is exactly what we're talking about today. So let's do it. When I was invited to speak this time, and by the way, I was speaking about the first time I spoke here this time, it was right after COVID, or maybe right during COVID, and we felt like the spiritual center, the Yucca Valley Center for Spiritual Living, was kind of almost like dangling by a thread. And by comparison, the moment we stand in right now with those of you that have showed up, as she said, again and again and again, and shown your support for this community, yes to that, please. They do rely on your donations, and I am going to ask you to make one, as do we with our contributions. So it goes right to this center that supports this entire high desert. So yes, please, and thank you. Having said that.
Thank you.
Okay. So, and when they asked me to speak this time, I had two things just on the top of my head that I want to talk about. And I said, I'm not sure if it's going to be like listening versus hearing, or if it's going to be called Who Sits at Your Table, which is what I call the unpacking of ahimsa. And we just kind of let it sit there for a moment, seeing which one wants to come forward. But I want to tell you that this talk could have just as easily been something like space holding and who holds space for space holders. It could have been called any number of things, and it would turn out that the conversation would be the same no matter what door we open to get there. So the start and finish of every conversation is always going to be true union, and that is the unpacking of ahimsa, and that is really the prayer that Anne brought today. It was extraordinary. I even wrote some of her words down so that we can draw those in later. I'm going to ask someone to hold me accountable for time. I have no concept of time. So, what time is it? What time is it now? When do I have to stop? That's all I really need to know. How long do I talk from now?
We have about 17 minutes to go.
17 minutes go. I'm gonna kind of set a timer, keep myself on track. Okay. Ahimsa, in its simplest form, means do no harm. And I know you know that that kind of bespeaks of the commandments. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. These are obvious things. We brought in deeper definitions just in the introduction alone, and I appreciate those being brought in so that we don't have to spend time on that. But what I do want to tell you is that there's a lot more going on here in ways that you might not understand, and literally daily in every aspect of your life and in every relationship, whether you're looking at community relationships, all of your circles, your family, the workplace, everywhere where you have people around you, and you're engaging and you're interacting, and by the way, you're projecting your self-perception. There's gonna be a lot going on here. And ahimsa, in its purest form, is gonna be a much, much higher calling for accountability in what I'm gonna call your energetic contribution to your relationships. After all, there's only one true relationship, and that is your relationship with yourself in the context of everyone and everything that you see before you. And that's playing out, by the way, for you, not to you, although sometimes it feels that way, doesn't it? So I want to bring into this conversation concepts like gossip, which we're going to simplify to something like judgment. And listen, as I'm bringing these points in, I actually want you to kind of gather, because ultimately this talk is called Who Sits at Your Table? And it's going to be really about clearing your auric field. And so I want you to gather your thought response to what I say so that you can bring people into your lives that you have this energy with, that here's the opportunity for that to be cleared. So that's what we're doing here. It's a tangible, practical, functional way of just clearing the auric field. Okay. There are maybe 4 types of separateness, and by separateness we can call it judgment. And by the way, we can call it separateness, we can call it error, which by the way we could reinterpret according to the Bible or the Course of Miracles as the original sin, is the idea that there ever was separateness between you and Source, between you and truth, and therefore between you and all others as divine in form, aspects of the Creator in form, may be expressed with individuality, and knowing that every single other, seemingly other, absolutely, positively, unequivocally has the right to be exactly as they are, with everything they've chosen to learn through and everything they're up against, which is always limiting beliefs and agreements made in fear. And we take these others in an idea of separateness and we project ourselves upon them, and we have these engagements with them, and sometimes these engagements feel off, they feel bad. And the kind of like normal way of saying that would be like, I don't like her. Or maybe it's not really that you don't like her, maybe you feel bad because actually you don't think she likes you. And actually maybe you really want her to like you and you don't understand why she doesn't. And can you start to see how this just becomes a real life scenario in all of your relationships and in all of your encounters? And I want to tell you first, I think the order we'll go in is first, those aspects of separateness, which by the way are what we've chosen in incarnation to be in form and as an aspect of the Creator, with our thought identification of, okay, so my name is Kim and I've got this hair and whatever it is that makes you uniquely you in personality, by the way, is the small self, the egoic personality self-construct of self is separate. So it's only from that place that you can identify separateness from another. Because when we are in true union, there actually is no separate and cannot be. And by the way, there is no judgment and cannot be. So the judgments that exist kind of like in 4 forms. The first one is fear. Judgment is fear. That simply is all there is to it. But there's another one that is history. And this is one that Anne brought into the prayer, and history is huge. So now we're going to start talking about real life experiences that I want you to draw upon in your own life, personally. Let's say that there was this, we'll call it a negative event. It could, but I prefer to call that the most extraordinary event, the greatest growth potential. There's this negative event that happened historically 10, 15 years ago. And it caused some division in your community, or in your family, or in the workplace, or whatever it is. But there's something that somebody took very personally that they've held against you, and they told others about. And now we're talking ahimsa. This is no joke. It's the separateness that exists by default and the harm that is done energetically and vibrationally upon another. So let me create an example here. And let's use gossip. Let's say that 10 years ago something happened and somebody spoke ill toward you. You know when you're being judged, right? Can't you feel it? When you walk up and you see someone and you're like, ooh, that feels bad. And how about this? How about when you walk up and see someone and they're with another that you've never met before, but you can feel that they've spoken about you and that other person is literally holding something against you on behalf of the one, even though they've never met you before and it happened 10 years ago or 20, whatever it is. These are moments of ahimsa. These are moments of what I'm going to call unspoken agreements. And by the way, these unspoken agreements are not only in friendships, they're in families. And it's a little bit, so evaluate your friendships. How about that? This is a call to evaluate your friendships right now and what are the unspoken agreements in your friendships. Here's a real call to action. So sometimes the agreements are something like this. If I'm mad at someone, you have to be mad at them also. And if I feel that they are deceitful, then you need to see them as deceitful also. And by the way, not only should you see them as deceitful, you should tell everyone else how deceitful they are, so that we get this whole community, group energy to rally up the deceitful energy that we project upon a moment of another. That's the harm. So even gossip, especially the unspoken agreements in friendship. Will you hold a grudge on my behalf? They betrayed me. I'd like you to hate them forever. Those unspoken agreements of that's how you show me your loyalty. That's how you show me your love. This is not a high way of being. Can you see that? It's not a high way of being. We can do better. This is a call to do better. So ahimsa is a call for accountability. And when I talk about this call for accountability, I'm talking about the unspoken agreements in your friendships and even in your familial relationships. So I started talking about it. Fear is the judgment. And I brought that into an example of gossip. But there's also some separateness and some judgment rooted in history. And I think that was kind of in my example as well. Like, do you still feel imprisoned by this thing that happened so long ago, and there's some energetic group that just can't let you move past it? Expectation, which is conditional love. You'll be my friend as long as you do this for me, be this for me. The expectation, you will become this. You should, by the way, how about shoulds? How about all the shoulds we put on friends and family? And then when they don't meet our expectation, they don't meet our should, they don't comply with our prescription, our demand, our dictates, then we tell someone else, well, they never did what I said they should do, and therefore they're that. That happens at the dinner table at Thanksgiving. What in the world? What in the world is happening here? So, judgment, fear, history, agreements, if then, expectations, and shoulds. So now I want to start moving toward a meditation, because there's that clock thing, and this is a lot to unpack in a small amount of time. But I want to give you a meditation, and that is a tool for you. So let's start talking about that. Because the call that I make for you is that we no longer agree to the separation. The call that I make for you is we no longer have those unspoken agreements in our friendships, and we abide by a higher way of being. And by the way, by doing it in our friendships, we set an example and a tone for others to follow. So to say maybe to yourself, I can no longer agree to the separateness. I can no longer agree to the judgment. Because especially in the case of a Thanksgiving table, you're talking about your beloved and your beloved. And actually, if you were to really think about it, if you were to see your beloved in all their light, and you were to see your beloved in all their light, and see that one beloved is speaking to you about the other beloved with some expectation that you're agreeing and jumping in on it, and so forth, that is not what we're looking for at the table. Oh, how funny, it's called Who Sits at Your Table. Oh my God, I think the boardroom in my meditation just became the Thanksgiving dinner table. This is epic and universe. I could not possibly have planned it better than that. I love it when it happens. All I have to do is show up. All I have to do is show up. So yes to showing up an hour before it started from LA, so yes to that. Okay, I want to talk about compassion because Anne brought it into the meditation. And maybe because look at, there's even a level of compassion that exists in separateness and judgment. It's a little bit like, oh, poor dear, they're damaged and broken, and oh, I'm compassionate. No, you aren't. That's not what it is. That's still the judgment. Can you sense it? Okay, tolerance and acceptance. Okay, I'll accept you as you are. Can you sense the judgment in that? Tolerate. Tolerance? No, I want to free you from that. There's a higher way of being and saying, and it all has to do with ahimsa. And to me, true union and true compassion is actually your ability to recognize the creator in all of the frequencies through which it expresses. Everyone, in their beauty, with their right to be, exactly as they are, in this moment and in every moment, with everything they've chosen to learn through everything they're up against, limiting beliefs and agreements made in fear. So in a way, doing no harm is being sovereign, being space holder, standing in your dominion, knowing who you are in truth as an aspect of the creator in form, and speaking to the other as that, even when they don't know it, feel it, believe it, even when they do think they're unworthy, unlovable, even when they can't forgive themselves for that thing that happened in that moment 10 years ago. Come on now. We're ready for something more. We're ready for a higher set of agreements. So let me just check my notes and make sure I tell you everything I want to. Okay, forgiveness is freedom. And it's freedom from all of those things that we talked about: fear, judgment, expectation, history, the shoulds, and the conditions of friendships, what someone should be, what somebody isn't, what you told them they should do or should be that they aren't, and so on and so forth. But in a moment, right now, I want to actually flip this. And here's what I mean. I want you to think of when that harm, energetic harm, was, I'm going to call it, done unto you. And you know it because there's this person, and you know there's this thing, and you feel it when you see them, and they've spoken about you to everyone around. And this is the auric field that I want to clear, and this is what I'm calling Who Sits at Your Table. And so now, instead of, I'm going to note to self, instead of the boardroom, which is where my meditation originated, this is going to be your Thanksgiving table, except that this is not necessarily everyone you have at your table for Thanksgiving. This is specifically anyone and everyone with whom you'd like to clear the auric field. So here's what I'd like you to do, and do it with me, please. Sit up so your spine is straight, but relax your belly, and close your eyes and breathe. And let's take a breath and imagine you at your table. You're at the head of the table. And you're going to specifically invite someone in. For the sake of time, we'll make it one person. One person with whom you'd like to have forgiveness and just what you might call clear the air and have freedom from this thing that you probably hold against yourself in the form of them. That encounter that you'd like to re-perceive in a higher way. And I'd like you to sit at the table. Invite them in to sit right next to you and see them there. And when I say see them there, what I actually mean is see them there in their entirety, which actually means on every level of being. See who they are as a daughter or a son. See who they are as maybe a father or a mother. See who they are as a husband or a wife. See who they are as a brother or a sister. See who they are in their I'll say professional capacity, or any way that they assign self-value, and see them. See what they've chosen to learn through, and what I'm going to call who they think they are in the form of what they've been taught, their experiences, as if maybe you're even seeing them for the very first time. And in this moment, we'll just, I'm going to call it expand upon the Ho'oponopono prayer. I'm going to modify it a little bit to expand upon it, to give both of you actually true freedom. So in this moment, say to this person, I see you in your right to be. I see you with everything you've chosen to learn through, everything you're up against. And I see your self-perception projected upon me, and I understand better now. And we'll go through a process. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for any offense that you have perceived coming from me. And if you'd like to, in your meditation space later on, expand upon that, because perhaps self-forgiveness is what's required in that moment. And now, I forgive you. I forgive you for the offenses that I've perceived. I forgive you. I've perceived you as perpetrator and me as victim. I free you from that. I free you from that space I hold you in. Thank you. Thank you for our shared path. Thank you for the mirror that you've held for me to see my self-perception. How will I perceive myself in this context? What will my contribution be? Thank you for letting me see myself in the form of you. And in your own meditation space, it's really vital to spend time expanding upon that. And I love you. And I love me, and I love you. And I love you, and I love me. And I love we, and thank you. And you're free. You are free from the perceptions I've held you in history, and I free myself from the perceptions you've held me in history. I'm free. And I know who you are in truth. As an aspect of the Creator, and what you are in form, and how you serve. So you might go through a process where you free and release everyone from your own shoulds, from your own expectation, from your own perceived offenses, and so on and so on. And maybe you have a full table to work through. But when that table is empty and you are free from what you've held, now you will fill every seat in that table. And I'll leave this up to your choosing. You're either going to fill every seat in that table by re-inviting those that you've loved and released back in freedom, with a new perception coming from truth, true union, true compassion. Or perhaps you fill the seats in the table with ascended masters, gurus, beings who you'd like to fill the auric field as you navigate the terrain through your own self-perception. Okay, so I call upon you to do that this Thanksgiving. It's always a pleasure to join you here. I want you to stay tuned for the announcements, because I'm going to have a chat with Trisha and Karen after this, and there's something I'd like to offer you. So we'll talk about that later after I have the approval. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the blessings I've received by being here, and I want to bless each of you for Thanksgiving, to just sit in a higher way of being as you sit with your loved ones, friends, family, community, as we consider you ours. Okay. Amen.